After we broke up, she said, "You'll die single. No one wants a guy like you." I said, "We'll see." 2 years later, she was the photographer at my wedding. The end of my 5-year relationship came down to a single, brutal sentence. We were standing in the middle of our cramped apartment, surrounded by the life we had built together, and all of it was about to turn to dust. The argument had been simmering for weeks, but it finally boiled over that night. It wasn't about anything specific, not really. It was about everything. It was about my quiet life, my stable but unremarkable job as a graphic designer, and my refusal to take on massive debt to fund the flashy lifestyle she craved. She looked at me, not with sadness, but with a kind of cold pity, like she was a doctor delivering a bad diagnosis. "It's not working, Alex," she said. "I look at you and I don't see a future. I need more than this." I just stood there, tired, too tired to fight. "More what, Clara?" "More everything," she said, her voice rising. "More excitement, more ambition, more life. You're a good guy, but you're boring. You'll die single. No one wants a guy like you." That was the line, the one that cut through the noise. "You'll die single. No one wants a guy like you." It wasn't just a breakup line. It was a curse, a judgment on my entire existence. I didn't get angry. Something inside me just went very, very still. I looked at this woman I had loved, this person I had planned a future with, and I saw a stranger. "We'll see," I said. That was it. Just 2 words. But I said them with a kind of certainty that surprised even me. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. A promise to myself. My lack of a fight seemed to disappoint her. I think she wanted me to break down, to prove her right. I just walked over to the closet and pulled out a few empty boxes. "You should probably get your stuff packed," I said. The next 2 years were a quiet, methodical process of rebuilding. Clara moved out and immediately moved on, getting into a relationship with some finance guy named Marcus who drove a sports car and took her on the lavish vacations she'd always wanted. She made sure I saw it, of course. Her social media was a highlight reel of her new, exciting life. A constant, unspoken, "I told you so." I didn't let it get to me. I used her words as fuel. The first thing I did was quit my boring job. It was a huge risk, but I was done playing it safe. I had a passion that I had always kept on the back burner. Building custom computers. Not just plugging in parts, but high-end, liquid-cooled, artistic builds for gaming and video production. Clara had always called it my nerdy little hobby. She hated when I spent weekends surrounded by cables and components. She saw it as a waste of time. I decided to see if she was right. I cashed out my modest retirement savings, rented a small, cheap workshop on the industrial side of town, and got to work. The first 6 months were brutal. I was burning through my savings, working 18-hour days, and barely making enough to cover rent. There were moments of doubt, moments when her voice would creep into my head, telling me I was a loser, that I was destined to fail. But every time I felt like giving up, I would just repeat those 2 words to myself. "We'll see." Slowly, things started to turn. I finished my first major build, a ridiculously powerful machine in a custom-etched glass case. I posted pictures of it online, on a few tech forums. A week later, a professional video editor from a big production company offered me a stupid amount of money for it. That first sale felt like a lifeline. I used the money to buy more high-end parts and started the process all over again. My reputation started to grow in those niche circles. People started calling me for custom work. My nerdy little hobby was turning into a real business. A year in, I had to hire my first employee, a young, brilliant tech named Leo. By the end of the 2nd year, we had a 3-month waiting list for custom builds. I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. But the biggest change in my life wasn't the business. It was her. Her name was Emily, and she walked into my workshop one rainy Tuesday afternoon. She was a landscape architect, and her car had broken down just outside. She came in to ask to use the phone. We started talking, and we didn't stop for 2 hours. She wasn't impressed by money or status. She was impressed by passion. She saw the computers I was building not as nerdy machines, but as works of art. She saw the burn marks on my hands from soldering, not as a sign of a low-class job, but as proof that I created things. She saw me, the real me. The guy Clara had called boring. Our relationship was the opposite of what I'd had with Clara. It was easy, it was quiet. We built a life together based on mutual respect and shared passions. A year after we met, I took her back to that same rainy spot outside my workshop, got down on one knee, and asked her to marry me. She said yes. And that's when the universe decided to throw me the most insane curveball of my life. We started planning the wedding. It was mostly Emily. She had a vision, and I was happy to let her run with it. All I cared about was that she would be standing at the other end of the aisle. One of the biggest things on her list was finding the perfect photographer. She spent weeks scrolling through websites and portfolios. One night, she called me over to her laptop, her face glowing with excitement. "I found her," she said. "She's perfect." She showed me the website. The business was called Captured Moments. The photography was stunning. It was artistic, candid, and full of life. It was exactly what we wanted. The photographer's bio was vague, just a first name, Clara. The bio picture was an artsy, yet black and white shot of a woman with a camera obscuring most of her face. The name didn't even register. It's a common name. I didn't think twice about it. Emily handled all the communication. She had a few video calls with the photographer, but I was always at the workshop, busy with the build. Emily would tell me how great she was, how they clicked instantly. She signed the contract and paid the deposit. The photographer for our wedding was booked. We never once spoke. The next few months were a blur of wedding planning. We booked a beautiful old estate in the countryside for the venue. We tasted cakes, picked out flowers, and sent out invitations. My business was doing better than ever, and we could afford the wedding of our dreams. Life was good. Perfect, even. The day of the wedding arrived. I was standing at the altar, my hands shaking just a little. My best man, my old friend Mike, leaned over and whispered, "You good, man?" "Better than good." I whispered back. The music started and the guests all stood up. Emily began her walk down the aisle, and she was breathtaking. I only had eyes for her. The whole world just faded away. The ceremony was beautiful. We exchanged our vows, the promises we had written ourselves. The officiant pronounced us husband and wife. We kissed and the crowd cheered. It was the happiest moment of my life. We walked back down the aisle, hand in hand, grinning like idiots. We were swarmed by our friends and family, a sea of hugs and congratulations. As we made our way towards the reception area, our wedding planner, a wonderfully efficient woman named Maria, intercepted us. "Time for the family photos," she said cheerfully. "Your photographer has the perfect spot picked out by the gardens." She gestured towards a woman who was setting up a tripod near a beautiful old oak tree. The woman had her back to us, adjusting her camera. She was dressed in professional black pants and a blazer. "Go on," Maria said, gently nudging us forward. "She's all ready for you." Emily and I walked over. As we got closer, the photographer turned around, and my world stopped. It was her. It was Clara. I felt all the air leave my lungs. Her face went completely white. Her professional smile dissolved into a mask of pure shock. Her camera, the one she was holding, slipped a little in her hands. We just stood there for what felt like an eternity, in a bubble of stunned silence, while the happy noise of our wedding reception buzzed around us. Clara was the first to her. She was a professional, after all. She swallowed hard, her eyes darting between me and Emily, who was looking at me with a confused expression. "Hi," Clara said, her voice a strained whisper. "Clara," I said. It was all I could manage. Emily looked back and forth between us. "You two know each other?" The look on Clara's face was one of pure, unadulterated panic. She knew in that instant that her entire world was about to crumble, but she was trapped. She had a contract. She had a job to do. "We used to," I said, my voice steady. I looked directly at Clara. "A long time ago." The next hour was the most surreal experience of my life. Clara had to be our wedding photographer. She had to pose us. She had to tell my beautiful, radiant wife to put her arm around me. She had to tell me to kiss my bride. And she had to capture it all on camera. I was a consummate professional. I smiled, I laughed, I followed her instructions to the letter. Every time she said, "Okay, one more, a big happy smile now," I gave her the biggest, happiest smile I could muster. And every time I could see a little piece of her die inside. She had to take pictures of me with my family. She had to take pictures of me with Emily's family. She had to take pictures of me with my friends, the same friends she had once called boring and unambitious. She was forced to document in excruciating detail the beautiful, happy, successful life I had built after she had left me for dead. At one point, while she was adjusting her lighting, my best man Mike came over to grab me for a drink. He saw her, and his jaw just dropped. He knew the whole story. He looked at me, a slow grin spreading across his face. "No way," he mouthed. I just gave him a little wink. The most brutal part was the reception. She had to walk around the room, capturing all the candid moments. She had to take pictures of the toasts, where my friends and family talked about what a great guy I was and how happy they were that I had found Emily. She had to take pictures of our first dance, the two of us lost in our own world, while she stood on the outside, looking in. Late in the evening, I was standing by the bar, talking to a few of Emily's cousins. I saw Clara packing up some of her gear. She looked exhausted, broken. She saw me looking at her and started to walk over. I excused myself and met her halfway, near the exit. "I need to talk to you," she said, her voice low and shaky. "I think we've done enough talking for one lifetime," I said. "No, please," she begged, and I saw tears welling up in her eyes. "I'm so sorry, Alex. I was a fool. I made the biggest mistake of my life." "Was it a mistake?" I asked, genuinely curious. "Or did it just not work out the way you planned?" She flinched. "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" I said. "You left me because you thought I was a loser. You told me I would die single because no one would ever want a guy like me. You made a prediction, and you were right in a way. That guy, the one you left, he probably would have. You just gave him the motivation to stop being that guy." I reached into my wallet and pulled out a $50 bill. I tucked it into her hand. "For the therapy you're going to need after this," I said. "And for the lesson." "Thank you." I walked away and left her standing there, a single tear rolling down her cheek. A month later, a package arrived at our new house. It was a USB drive with all of our wedding photos. There was no note. I plugged it into my computer. Emily and I sat on the couch, the same way Clara and I had sat on that couch in my old apartment 2 years earlier. We scrolled through the pictures. They were beautiful, absolutely perfect. She had done her job flawlessly. She had captured every smile, every tear of joy, every happy moment. It was a perfect record of the best day of my life. As we were looking through them, Emily turned to me. "You know," she said, "I never told you this, but when I was on the phone with that photographer booking her, she said something strange. I told her my fiancé's name was Alex, and she got really quiet. Then she said, 'I once knew an Alex. I wonder whatever happened to him.' I didn't think anything of it at the time. I just smiled and pulled my wife closer. 'I guess now she knows,' I said. We framed our favorite picture, a candid shot of the two of us laughing during the reception. It's the first thing you see when you walk into our home. Sometimes I look at it and I think about Clara. I think about her, sitting in a dark room, editing hundreds of photos of my perfect life, the life she threw away. I'm sure she did a great job. After all, I paid her for it. The pictures are beautiful. Best money I ever spent." The story didn't end there, though. The wedding was the main event, but the fallout was a slow burn. About 2 months after the wedding, I got served with legal papers. Clara was suing me. Not for a lot of money, but for something so ridiculous it was almost funny. She was suing me for half the value of my business. Her claim was that since we had lived together while I was developing the foundational ideas for my business, she was entitled to a share of the profits. She argued that her emotional support during the first year of our relationship had been a key factor in my later success. It was a complete work of fiction. I had started the business after she left me. Her only contribution had been the motivation to prove her wrong. I called my lawyer, a sharp guy who had handled the legal side of setting up my company. He actually laughed when I read him the lawsuit. "This is a desperation move," he said. "She has no case, but we have to respond." We filed a motion to dismiss, along with a mountain of evidence. We had the date of our breakup. We had the date I officially registered my business, a full 6 months after she was gone. We had bank statements showing I had funded the business with my own savings with no contribution from her. My lawyer also added a little something extra, a request that the court order Clara to pay for my legal fees, since the lawsuit was clearly frivolous and intended to harass me. A month later, we were in court. It wasn't a trial, just a hearing on our motion to dismiss. Clara was there with her lawyer, a guy who looked like he was fresh out of law school. She was dressed in a conservative black suit, trying to look like a serious businesswoman. She wouldn't look at me. Her lawyer made a passionate, rambling speech about emotional labor and the unfairness of it all. The judge, a no-nonsense older woman, just listened patiently. When he was done, she looked at my lawyer. He stood up and said, "Your Honor, the plaintiff's entire case is based on a feeling. We have facts." He then laid out the timeline, the bank statements, and the business registration documents. He was done in 5 minutes. The judge looked at the evidence. She looked at Clara. Then she said, "Ma'am, your relationship ended in a breakup, not a business partnership. You are not entitled to the fruits of a tree you did not help plant. In fact, based on the evidence, it seems you tried to chop the tree down." She granted our motion to dismiss. And then she granted our request for legal fees. She ordered Clara to pay every penny I had spent defending myself against her ridiculous lawsuit. I saw Clara's face crumble. She had not only lost, but she was now in debt to me. The final escalation was a personal one. A few weeks after the court hearing, I got a message on social media from a woman I didn't know. Her name was Sarah, and her profile picture was of her and Marcus, the finance guy Clara had left me for. "Hi Alex," the message read. "I know this is weird, but I'm Marcus's ex-fiancé. We were together for 3 years before he left me for Clara. I just wanted to say that I saw the pictures of your wedding, and I am so happy for you. I also wanted to tell you what a bullet you dodged." She went on to tell me a story that was chillingly familiar. Marcus had been a good, stable guy, but he wasn't flashy enough for Clara. She had convinced him to take on huge amounts of debt to fund her lifestyle. They had bought a condo they couldn't afford. He had leased a car that was way out of his budget. When Marcus's business took a downturn and the money got tight, Clara had turned on him, calling him a failure. She had left him buried in debt, his credit score ruined. "She's a parasite," Sarah wrote. "She attaches herself to good people and drains them dry. I'm still recovering financially from what she did to me and Marcus. Seeing her get a little taste of her own medicine at your wedding, well, let's just say it made my year." That message was the final piece of the puzzle. It confirmed what I already knew. Clara hadn't just been wrong about me. She was fundamentally broken in her view of the world. She chased shiny things, and when the shine wore off, she moved on, leaving a trail of destruction in her wake. A few months after the lawsuit, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. It was Clara. "I saw your wife is pregnant," the text read. "I saw the announcement on Emily's friend's page. I just wanted to say congratulations, and I wanted to ask if we could talk." I showed the text to Emily. She just read it and shook her head. "What is there to talk about?" I typed back a simple reply. "Thank you. But no." I blocked the number. I didn't need to talk to her. I didn't need her apology. I had already won. The proof was all around me. It was in my thriving business, built on a passion she had mocked. It was in my beautiful home, filled with love and respect. And it was in the gentle curve of my wife's belly, carrying our future. Her final text, the one that I still have a screenshot of, came a few weeks after that. It was from another new number. It just said, "I miss us." I laughed when I read it. She didn't miss us. We were never really an us. She missed the comfort. She missed the stability. She missed the guy she thought was a safe, boring bet. What she failed to realize was that even a safe bet can get tired of a game that's rigged against him. And when he walks away from the table, he sometimes ends up winning the whole casino. I deleted the text and went back to helping my wife paint the nursery.